Hello there, you are listening to The Screen Queen, where you'll be finding your favorite movie or your favorite television show and learning something new. You'll just have to listen to find out. Here is your host, Samantha Parrish. Hello there and welcome back to the show Screen Team. And for anyone that's new, my name is Sammy Parrish and I am the host of The Screen Queen. This show is going to be reaching 130 episodes soon, which is also wild. I was making a joke to myself that if this keeps going, then I'm probably going to end up having the same amount of episodes as like One Piece generates. So I don't know if I can outdo One Piece, but I'll try. So, a cure for wellness. It exists. Despite almost being 10 years old, it's had a very bizarre introduction, but it's aged in a very unique way. So unfortunately, A Cure for Wellness only had a 1-week release. I remember when it came out, though. I went to go see the Lego Batman film with my friend Lincoln, and there was advertisements about the girl in the blue bottle. Little did we know that would be a very famous person in the blue bottle. But it had an interesting idea, but unfortunately due to one controversial scene, that's why it only had a 1-week release. But now that the film was almost 10 years old and I finally got the chance to watch it, and oh boy, am I never going to forget this film. So here we go. This is A Cure for Wellness. So it's imperative to know that this film had 2 different release dates, because this is a film that was made in 2016, and with this being 2025, it does make it a film that's almost 10 years old, which gives it its age. But it was not released in the US until 2017, around the time the Lego Batman film came out, and that was some dead in the water competition. Oh. So for those that have never heard of A Cure for Wellness, I'm gonna give you the synopsis, and it's gonna be a little wild, so hang on to yourself. So it follows a young executive named Lockout who does his normal job in his abnormally green-tinted office, which is a big thing later. And all he has to do is just go get his the employee from a rehabilitation center, a wellness center in the Swiss Alps. And he gets there and he sees that everything is not what it appears to be. And when Lockhart leaves the whole place, trying to wipe it from his mind, he ends up having his car totaled. He's now in a wheelchair and he is trapped in the wellness center. And for some strange reason, they're very keen about their eels. Now we're basically watching this character having to escape a place that's supposed to make him well. But what is the wellness? What is the sickness? That's where we're starting to get the ideas for A Cure for Wellness. The story comes from a novel by an author named Thomas Mann, who wrote the book The Magic Mountain. And the book also has a nice reference in the film itself where there's a character reading The Magic Mountain as like a nice little spot-on reference. Like, still wasn't going to make the movie improve, but at least they acknowledged their source material. This film has actually more international ties than American ties, because it was filmed in the United States, for a little bit, but it's also filmed in Germany and Luxembourg. The Cure for Wellness place, the whole set, is actually at a castle that is not available to the public, so the director and the crew had to be told, hey, you're only going to get this place for a certain amount of months before we're going to close it back up, because the castle is also a piece of literal history. And as I found out, I haven't been able to shake this, the castle was originally a medical unit during WW1. One of the patients was Adolf Hitler. Yeah, that's something to definitely remember. I think I remember that thing more than the actual film. That is just wild to have to think this was filmed where Hitler was saved. Oh, I hate that has a sentence that exists. I better get used to this. So when I was watching this movie, even though the plot was a lot to have to get invested to, I feel like I had to commit to a film that was about being committed to a psych ward. But everything about this film felt very atmospheric, and I wondered, why does it look this atmospheric? Someone's definitely not had their first rodeo here. Like, this film looks too good. And I looked up who it was. Gore Verbinski. Now, that might not be a name that you know, but I'm sure you'll know these names behind him that he's directed, like The Ring, Pirates of the Caribbean, that one really weird Nazi Nutcracker film. God. I think it's called Nutcracker 3D. Ugh, yikes. Oh yeah, something I learned recently. Mouse Hunt. Yeah. The guy who did all those things is responsible for this film. If there's anything to take away from this film, at least its atmosphere is great. Looking at Pirates of the Caribbean being a very masterful, crafted film that, yeah, has a lot of weird garbage, but, you enjoy what you look at. And just like with The Ring, I mean, damn, there's a reason why it is terrifying on both DVD and VHS. But the green color was also used in The Ring as like a way to indicate a sickliness. Now, I can see the green psychology more in A Cure for Wellness than I did for The Ring. The Ring, I didn't mind it, but it's supposed to be a scary film about a girl coming through a television set, so having the green murkiness doesn't exactly make it come off as creepy as it does. But because a wellness center usually has the color green associated with, wellness, having the colors suited within this movie, it does make it feel like a parallel against itself, if I may. Where it's supposed to be a color of goodness, but this is also a color of sickliness and creepiness. So, I guess Gore wanted more of that green, and he got it. There's been a multitude of different films to exist that revolves around insane asylums, but there's not many you can think of that has a specific edit that makes it stick out. When you look at films that revolve around an insane asylum and the way that they're presented, it tends to stick out a bit. Look at a film like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest that just kind of is a point-and-go film. It doesn't have a certain filter that makes it stick out. Then look at a film like Shutter Island, where its whole pacing and storytelling does go into the way the film itself changes in its edits. So you have A Cure for Wellness that sticks out because of its color filter. And the color filter does give more of the ambiance as we're slowly and carefully and cautiously getting through this wellness center. You're either going to love that green color or you're going to hate it because, I guess it had a good ring to it. Okay, I'll see myself out. So we have the director for the atmosphere, but who's the guy that we're going to be relying upon for going into the atmosphere? The one that's at the center of it all, Dane DeHann. Now, I have to be honest, I feel like Dane DeHann gets screwed a lot in movies. Dane DeHann has such a demanding presence that even him just making a look invites so much interest. And he's supposed to be playing a character named Lockhart that is kind of your stick-in-the-mud character. Even him being devoid of expression, he still finds a way to be intriguing, so we can still follow this character that's about to have their life flipped upside down. Dane DeHann has been in many great films from Chronicle, and I'm still going to give him credit for Amazing Spider-Man 2 and his TV performances, and where he was at the time in 2016, 2017, it's not a bad leading man role. I feel like they could have given him more to work with because clearly he could have given more than what he was already giving. It had a lot of potential because he brings so much to every film. And I hope in the years to come that people do appreciate him for this leading man role that he does. But with this being a first leading man role for Dane DeHann, this is also the first film for now Scream Queen, Mia Goth. Now, this film is the reason why I know Mia Goth. I was never able to forget that she's the girl in the blue bottle on the poster. And everything I've seen in her since, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's the girl from A Cure for Wellness. Did not know this was her first horror film that she's done. Not her first film, unfortunately. That title belongs to a little thing called Nymphomaniac, Volume 1 and 2. But homegirl's got some talent. She was almost born and bred to be in the horror industry. She plays a character that's almost the anti-Alice, like even a little bit more crazier than the other Alice in Wonderland adaptations. She's both an insider and an outsider. The way that her character comes across, you don't know if you want to trust her yet or if you want to save her. When I tell people that Mia Goth is in this movie, I've had some friends lose their minds because of how much she is loved as a scream queen. I don't know how much after Maxine, and then I don't know about Blade, but still, this is her origin, and I gotta respect her origins. And for anybody that is a major Mia Goth fan, I would definitely say you gotta see how this became her origin story. But then there's a villain of the film that makes you go, yep, there's a villain of the film, Jason Issacs, who plays the Doctor. Even though this man is literally known for playing Lucius Malfoy, General Zhao, and the guy that killed Heath Ledger in The Patriot, they did find someone who fits the bill of a doctor that definitely has some ulterior motives. Let's just say, when the ickiness really gets bad in this movie, it really changed the way that I saw Jason Issacs and the way that he played such terrible, sadistic villains. This one might outdo all of them. It's really up there. At first he goes very chillingly abnormal, that it's someone that is so okay with having to say what he does with the eels and how its presence does, but then the very end of it all, when he actually reveals his true motives, okay, man, he takes the cake. So even though this film has, like, a very good atmospheric director, and, you got 3 leads that are keeping the film going, but it did make me wonder, what was the point of this movie? There's not too much commentary to elaborate on because it is a adaptation of The Magic Mountain, but there's a lot of potential for this film because it does take place in an insanatorium that's supposed to be making people well. And that has been up for question for many years about what is deemed to be well and what isn't. A while ago in the 1970s, homosexuality was deemed to be a mental illness until the 1970s. And our idealisms of what is considered to be medicated or not medicated, or institutionalized or not institutionalized, it has some different ideas, and I feel like that's in there. It just has a very bizarre plot that kind of doesn't bleed well with the commentary. You kind of have to squint and just say, all right, I can see a little bit of commentary there, or put it in yourself. Because right now, you're just watching someone have to fight for their life in a place that they may or may not escape from. So it goes back and forth between wanting to be a commentary film about wellness and the idea of it, and watching this man having to roll for his life like James Caan in Misery. But I feel the thing that really throws this whole film off is the ending. So the ending of this movie is a little bit weird, but before I get into it, I need to give a hard trigger warning because there is a lot of ickiness that they wrap up in the last of this movie. There is going to be mentions of dental torture and SA, and I will have a time code available just in case nobody wants to be a part of that. Like, trust me, it's already icky having to talk about it. So here we go. So this film has like back-to-back plot twists, but it almost feels like it's trying to cancel each other out. So when Lockhart is taken because he knows too much, he realizes this is not a cure for wellness. There's no wellness going on. So he is sat down and tortured on his front tooth. And that is the moment that lost the audiences and people were walking out. But after that, see, that's where the film has different plot twists that cancel out each other. Lockhart's injury goes back and forth from appearing and disappearing, making you wonder what's going on here. Because that's all that's going through my mind is it supposed to be in Lockhart's mind? Because I thought the whole point was that he wasn't losing his mind and he's just trying to get out. Like, I thought he was sane. So if that's the point where his mind is broken and this is just the day it happened, it's literally detrimental issues, then I'll buy it. But when the movie continues and we see the progress of him saving the character Hannah from being SA'd by Ew, the doctor, who is also her father, double Ew. And then near the end, when everything's wrapped up and he says he's going for a ride, the tooth also disappears and reappears again. And then it just ends with directed by Gore Verbinski. And it's like, what am I supposed to do with that? See, this is where I felt like the film lost me. But then, knowing this is a film about an insane asylum, basically, I mean, it does kind of check out. But because this film has a lack of commitment, for lack of words to say, it doesn't make any sense. Because of the tooth disappearing and reappearing, it doesn't make much sense. Unless they were to flat out have a way to convey that this was all supposed to be Lockhart going into madness, cool, I'll buy it. Because the last scene kind of proved it was. It just didn't really feel fulfilled enough to have all of those different, various, intense plot points make sense. And all this is because of one moment of a film that caused people to walk out, and beyond that, there's not much of a reason to walk out from. It's a film where you kind of have to take it or leave it. This is the way that everything rolled out in the end. I'll give it that much, at least it's unique. I thought for a second most of the stuff in this film was just trying to make shock value. Especially the idea about the eels and its extreme treatments. But then, looking at it, it's the Swiss Alps, where there's a lot of other different remedies. Other countries have had to come up with different ideas on how to make a wellness, and the eels in there was not meant just to make things look creepy and try to knock off Slither. There is actually, as I found out, a healing property with European eels. So this being a European film that actually does check out. So here's the way I see this film. The film itself, it still exists. Its controversial moment is still its controversial moment. It went hard the way that the film did, and Gore Verbinski made his decisions. However, in the double-edged sword and the good side, its history has aged remarkably better. There is a historical significance because it did take place in a castle that wasn't always available to film in, and it is a spectacular thing to look at. Makes it a more ominous presence. And its medical history about the eels really goes hand in hand that you buy this is supposed to be a wellness center with a confirmed routine that has helped people. It's out there, but it helps people. Just like other things that we hear about all the time about places that use unique idealisms that are out there because it's not of our usual routine about what makes us better. And of course, like I said, this is the very first horror film of Mia Goth, who would go on to have a career. I don't know if it's good at this point, but it does exist. It's not a bad flick, but, I think it's worth a one-time watch. But I also had to look and see that this is the last known film that Gore Verbinski has put out. And yeah, it's not too hard to see why. When you're known as the guy that made Pirates of the Caribbean, Mouse Hunt, and The Ring, and then making this film that didn't survive a week in theaters, it can be a little pretty damning. That is until I saw that this year Gore Verbinski is putting out a new film called Spaceless. I don't know if he got a cure, but at least he got some space, am I right? Okay, alright, that's my last bad joke, I swear. For what it's worth, I think he did a great job. If this film had to exist being an insanatorium film that sticks out, it definitely does. For controversial ways and bizarre ways, but it still made an imprint. I feel like you can walk into a film, and even if you didn't like it, if you still found something from it, it's doing something. At least something, we'll just say that. And I feel like that's a good place to wrap up the episode. I wish I had more to say about it, but it's kind of one of those films you just have to experience. Even if that experience is, a little bit out there. So, I have a quick announcement to make before we find out what the June episode is going to be for the Screen Queen. I have some good news about my Inglorious Inc. series that I talk about at the end of every episode. I've been wanting to find a different way to market it, and the one thing that has been asked of me is to make an audiobook. And I finally got the chance to put aside the time and read the whole thing through. I don't have a definitive release date quite as of yet, since I'm still tweaking with how this is going to be presented. And I'm working with someone who's putting a lot of effort in this like I am. And until we get the first chapter looking pretty presentable, then we'll have an idea about when a release date might be coming out. But till then, I want to take my time with it. But it is something that will also probably take a little bit more time away from the show. So we're still going to be sticking with the 1 episode a month with the random trailer time mixed in and recaps whenever I can get around to getting that scheduled before its release. So this year for the Screen Queen is still going to be a little bit weird. Honestly, it's been the best move that I've made for myself to get my other projects going and still keep this one alive. And there's been a lot of people that have understood why I've had to alter this schedule to be so minimal. Makes me feel better when I have to take the time away from the show. So, let's get on with the show and find out what the next episode is going to be, baby. Let's go. Alrighty, so I got my little box here with some new suggestions. And we're going to see how the dice rolls. Let me get this shaken up a little bit more. Let me get from the bottom. What's going on here? You know, okay. Alright, well, I did say to myself, I wonder if we can make the episode a little bit gay since it is going to be Pride Month. And, well, you know, ask and I shall receive. We not only have an LGBTQ pick in my hand, but it is also an anime. A very underrated anime that I know a lot of people are probably going to freak out when I say this, that the next episode of The Screen Queen is going to be Revolutionary Girl Utena. No, that's going to be nice. We haven't done an anime in, probably since my birthday series. That's how long it's been. Wow. So here we go. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode for The Screen Queen. If you would like to catch up with me in between uploads, you can always find me on my Instagram at the Queen of the Screen. And then if you're looking for an easier way to listen to your media queen, I am also available on YouTube. If you just type in The Screen Queen on YouTube, you should be able to find the girl with the glitchy circle glasses. And I am going to go ahead and get on with my day. I'm going to be staying away from the Swiss Alps for a while. So anyway, you all take care and stay amazing. This is your Screen Queen, signing off. Bye-bye!